Mid-air collision over Potomac River kills 67. A tragic day in aviation history. On what was expected to be a routine day in the skies over Washington, D.C., tragedy struck with terrifying speed and left the nation in mourning. A catastrophic mid-air collision over the Potomac River claimed the lives of all 67 people on board two aircraft, marking one of the darkest days in U.S. aviation history. The accident not only shook the aviation community but also sparked renewed debates over air traffic control systems, flight protocols, and aviation safety standards in congested airspaces. The day of the disaster. On the morning of the tragic event, a commercial jetliner and a private aircraft took off from different airports, unaware that their fates would tragically intertwine above one of the nation's most prominent rivers. The commercial aircraft, a Boeing 737 operated by a well-established airline, was climbing steadily on its scheduled route to Chicago, carrying 58 passengers and 5 crew members. At the same time, a smaller Cessna 172, operated by a local flight school and carrying 4 occupants, was conducting a training flight over the Potomac. At approximately 10:42 a.m., as both aircraft converged in the busy air corridor above Washington, D.C., a fatal miscommunication and airspace mismanagement led to a direct collision. Witnesses on the ground reported seeing an explosion in the sky, followed by debris raining down into the river and onto nearby parklands. The collision and immediate aftermath. The collision occurred just a few miles from Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. Emergency response teams were dispatched within minutes, including Coast Guard boats, firefighting units, and helicopters. Despite the swift response, there were no survivors. Wreckage from both aircraft was scattered across the Potomac River, complicating recovery efforts. Divers and sonar equipment were used to locate the black boxes and recover the victims' remains. It took several days for teams to retrieve all major debris and bodies, a somber and emotionally draining task for first responders and grieving families. Eyewitness accounts. Numerous eyewitnesses near the Potomac provided chilling accounts of the mid-air disaster. One jogger, who had been on the nearby Mount Vernon Trail, said, "I heard a thunderous boom, looked up, and saw flames and pieces of metal falling from the sky. It was like watching a nightmare unfold in real life." Another resident recounted seeing both planes moments before impact. The small plane seemed to be flying low and fast. The bigger plane looked like it was climbing. Then there was just fire in the sky. These accounts played a crucial role in piecing together the events for investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. Investigating the cause. The NTSB quickly launched a full-scale investigation into the accident. Preliminary findings indicated that a combination of human error, communication failure, and systemic air traffic control issues was to blame. According to initial radar and voice recordings, the commercial flight had been cleared to ascend through an altitude where the Cessna was already operating under Visual Flight Rules, VFR. It was also discovered that the student pilot aboard the Cessna may not have been fully aware of their proximity to commercial flight paths. The trainer, while experienced, failed to correct the aircraft's heading in time. Meanwhile, the air traffic controller on duty had been juggling multiple aircraft and failed to notice the developing conflict until it was too late. The airspace over Washington, D.C. The tragedy highlighted the complexities of managing airspace over one of the most sensitive and crowded regions in the United States. The airspace over Washington, D.C. is divided into several controlled zones due to national security concerns, the density of flights, and the presence of restricted areas. Critics argue that these complexities make the region a ticking time bomb unless upgraded technologies and protocols are implemented. While radar systems and communication tools have evolved significantly in the past decade, the human element remains a vulnerable point. Public and government reaction. The loss of 67 lives sent shockwaves through the public and government. The President and aviation authorities offered condolences and promised a thorough investigation. In a press conference held 2 days after the crash, the FAA administrator stated, "This tragedy is a wake-up call. We must address the growing risks in our crowded skies with urgency and precision. We owe that to the victims and their families." Memorial services were held across the country, especially in the communities where the victims resided. Grief counselors were dispatched to affected families, and vigils were held along the Potomac River, where flowers and candles were laid in memory of those lost. Lessons and calls for reform. Aviation experts and lawmakers quickly began discussing reforms to prevent a recurrence of such a tragedy. Key suggestions included modernizing air traffic control systems. Calls to upgrade to more automated and AI-assisted control systems grew louder, to reduce human error in high-traffic airspace. Stricter training regulations. Suggestions were made to enforce stricter oversight on flight schools operating in congested airspaces and to better integrate their flight plans with commercial operations. Mandatory collision avoidance technology. While most commercial aircraft are equipped with traffic collision avoidance systems, TCAS, smaller aircraft often lack such technology. Mandating installation on all aircraft became a key point in policy discussions. Redefining no-fly zones. There was also a proposal to re-evaluate and possibly expand restricted areas to create a clearer separation between private and commercial aircraft. Mourning and moving forward. As the country mourned, families of the victims began to demand justice, transparency, and lasting change. Lawsuits against the FAA and the airline were expected, but many families stressed that accountability and reform mattered more than financial compensation. The aviation community, meanwhile, held memorial flights and tributes. Airlines around the world expressed solidarity, observing moments of silence and enhancing safety checks on their own procedures. In remembrance, a permanent memorial is being planned near the site of the crash, with names of all 67 victims engraved into a monument that will face the Potomac River. The goal is to create a place of quiet reflection, where future generations can remember the fragility of life and the importance of constant vigilance in aviation. Final thoughts. The mid-air collision over the Potomac River stands as a grim reminder that even with decades of advancement, aviation remains a delicate balance of technology, skill, and communication. The loss of 67 souls cannot be undone, but it can serve as a powerful catalyst for change. As investigations continue and reforms begin to take shape, one can only hope that from this tragedy arises a safer future for everyone who takes to the skies. Thanks for watching. This heartbreaking story reminds us how precious and fragile life truly is. If this video moved you, please like, subscribe, and share to help raise awareness about aviation safety. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about how tragedies like this can be prevented in the future. Don't forget to hit the bell icon for more real-life reports and deep dives into major global events.